Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of life in Wilkes.
Luke Jarvis, good to see you.
Good to you, Carl.
Welcome to the studio. We've been chatting for a couple of years, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think the first time we met was Christmas season, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It was in Wilkesboro.
Christmas 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Oh, you remember.
It was.
There you go.
Yep.
2021. So that has been a few years. And your group was... Were you selling soup or bowls?
So we were,
like
we were partnering with Nina's at the time and doing, it's called Nina's Christmas Chili. So we were doing like a little chili fundraiser.
Right.
We had some kids made some bowls from East Wilkes High School, and we were selling the bowls. And if they bought a bowl, they got a bowl of chili from Nina's. So
I love that.
That was the first thing. That was probably the first thing that WYLD did, and you were there, and we met and talked.
Wow, that was in the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I went by the other day, and Nina's isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Did she move somewhere else, or?
I think she's doing some stuff from her house, I believe. So I think I still see her on Facebook and still see her taking orders.
So we just go over there and get some chili and coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Nina, we're coming over.
Yeah.
2 bowls and a mug of 3 bowls and a mug of coffee. Tim, it's 3 bowls, Nina, but really, he'll take 2. So you'll need just make a pot.
Yeah.
It's a pot of chili. Well, Luke, here we are just talking. Imagine everybody knows who you are. Tell folks who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Luke Jarvis. I'm the founding executive director of Wilkes Youth Life Development. Also goes by WYLD. We're a youth-serving nonprofit, youth-led nonprofit organization here in Wilkes.
Wow, that's amazing. So how old are you now?
I'm 29.
So you're 20, and so when you say youth-led, are you considering yourself youth still?
I'm just kind of just over the hill, just kind of out of it.
Youth-minded?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Right.
Really, like teenagers is kind of our target population. So within WYLD, we have a Teen Action Council, and our Teen Action Council is made up of teenagers from almost all 5 high schools, 3 of the 4 middle schools, so from like 13 to 18.
What's the objective? You're coming together, but what's the reason for doing that?
Yeah, so with WYLD, our goal and mission is to develop healthy and to take youth into developing healthy, independent, and resilient adults. And with our Teen Action Council, we do that by giving youth a voice, showing youth their reason, and giving youth an outlet.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot. My goodness. Well, let's begin to break that down a little piece, because my brain is saying that's really cool.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what you're talking about.
Okay.
I think that's the important thing about life in Wilkes, is everybody's getting to know each other, right?
For sure.
And we want to understand what each of us are talking about. So break it. Let's just take those one category at a time.
Okay. So our Teen Action Council, well, let me kind of tell you how our Teen Action Council kind of came about.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of start from the beginning. So I went to Appalachian State University. My degree's in recreation management. My minor's in nonprofit management. So I always wanted to work with youth in some capacity. So when I got finished with school, came back to Wilkes, started getting plugged in our community, was really right before the pandemic happened, right in 2020. So
timing.
Right before the world, paused for 4 years or however long. But I got involved in the community, started wanting to work with youth, and realized that there was a lot of adults doing things for youth, but they didn't really have youth at the table in like asking for their opinion or getting their voice. So doing some great work. But if you're doing work and you don't have your population at the table to say it's going to work or it's not going to work, are you just kind of chasing your tail and going in a circle? So that was something I really wanted to focus on. So COVID happened, the world shut down. We started doing some planning, like COVID's eventually going to come to an end. What are kids going to need in our community? So we did some surveys with youth, with parents, with teachers, just community members. And like this youth-led model wasn't something that was happening in Wilkes, and people were really interested and excited about that. So summer of 2021 started kind of, or maybe even like the fall of 2020, started laying the foundation of what WYLD was going to be, what it was going to look like, and things we wanted to do.
So from the beginning, were you getting buy-in from?
Yeah, people were really interested in what we had going on. I think at times were different. At that point, people were ready to start doing stuff again, trying to get back toward normality. Sure. So this idea of, all right, let's get our youth plugged in, I think people realized the effect COVID had on youth in particular. Sure. Isolation, taking them from school, not being with their peers.
Right. Look, let's go back just a moment and talk about something that you said in the beginning, and that was that you've always had a feeling of doing something for the youth. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the reason for that. So that's my question quite specifically, is that because in your youth you wanted a voice and it wasn't there? Why did that happen?
Well, I think growing up I was really involved with my church. I was really involved in Boy Scouts and was really kind of really service driven, like service minded. Mm-hmm. And being in Boy Scouts, we had some like an Order of the Arrow program where it was youth led and adult guided, and just I think the ability for like adults to listen to what we were saying and what we wanted to do definitely had an impact, and like I really felt that and appreciated that. So that was something I wanted to continue. And when it comes to working with youth, it'd be good going on church mission trips and serving kids. Even as a kid, I wanted to serve kids. So just that service minded and that youth population, just because they're so, like they're craving things, and sure, to be able to help them,
And you're speaking from a first person experience, because that's the way you felt.
Right.
But you had the opportunity to be a Boy Scout. Yeah. You were involved with learning disciplines that put you in a position to be a better citizen,
right?
Regardless of your age, right?
Yeah.
So you discovered the power of that, and so are you saying that as you got older, you wanted more people to have that power?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I understand.
Yeah, I think that can completely change your dynamic. At a younger age, when you have that ability and you have a voice and people want to listen to it, you're starting to be bought into your community or to your school or to your church or whatever you're involved in. You have a lot more buy-in to it. You're going to be more impactful and more beneficial. And when you think about Wilkes, if we can get kids involved in what we have going on, whether it's through service projects or just advocates for themselves or helping their peers, like they're digging roots in our community. Right. And when they get to that point in time where they go off to school or they decide to go into the workforce, are they going to leave Wilkes because they don't have any roots here, or are their roots going to keep them here to be, our next generation in society?
Right. I really like that thought process, and here's why. I'll give you another side of it, and then we'll talk more about your gang, right?
Yeah.
One of the issues that we have in society now, with not just in Wilkes but all over the country, globally, is organizations that do wonderful work that have an aging membership.
Right.
And when we're saying aging, I mean, we've got some people graduating from Earth.
Yeah.
Right? So who's doing that work? I find myself asking a lot of those leaders, well, what's the plan? Who's gonna be leading the charge? How many young people do you have involved?
Right.
And for them, you're talking to somebody, just somebody 50 would be young,
Yeah.
But it needs to happen before that.
Right.
Because many of those organizations, they became involved when they were much younger. Mm-hmm. So these were people that in their 20s and 30s, they were already serving their community.
Right.
So are you suggesting that at the core of because when I hear what you're saying, it's almost like, well, wait a minute, this is a renaissance of the idea of serving community and how powerful that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that
absolutely, because when you think of like nonprofits in particular, like you're thinking about your sustainability plan and how you're going to be sustainable for years to come, but with the population that we're working with, there's always there's always that population. You have the older kids that could be going in their senior year that now they're mentoring 7th and 8th graders that are getting involved. And yeah, they have different interests and they're involved in different things, but they still have that service in their heart and that they want to be involved and help. So it's just been really cool to kind of see older kids taking younger kids under their wing. Our younger kids are becoming older kids. You know, we've been doing our Teen Action Council come up on 3 years now. So, right. But we've seen a lot of change from kids going to middle school to high school to getting their license to getting their first boyfriend and girlfriend, and kids' interests change. And it's been cool to see how even though their interests change, they're still tied to some things we're doing in some way, shape, or form.
That's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Because they're going to be 30 and 40,
yeah.
and they're going to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
So in the work that you do, and you'll get into sharing the rest of it. Now I'm going to ask you a leading question, then let you share with us how it may be involved. But the idea of the students, the young people who are participating in your program, have you been doing it long enough yet to see where it's really making a difference, and to see what happens when an individual joins the group, starts participating, of how their life changes and how it changes their outlook on the future?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So when our Teen Action Council started almost 3 years ago, we had about 5 kids. Started with 5 kids, and those kids were they were in the summer between freshman year and sophomore year. So they had just had their first year of high school, trying to find themselves and figure out what they were doing. We had some kids that were still in their shell and hadn't really come out of it, some really outspoken kids. And now, 3 years later, we've got kids that will stand up in front of a group of 100-some people and talk about what they're doing. And 3 years ago, I never would have thought that kid would talk to a stranger at a community event in Wilkes. And over the summer, I took some kids down to Raleigh to present on a panel at a conference, and they were the only kids there among 100, 200 some adults. And they walked in with their suits, and they were ready to answer any questions and talk about whatever. And that's just seeing their personalities change has been really cool.
Wow, that's great. All right, let's talk about the rest of your organization.
Yeah. So when our Teen Action Council got going, so kind of how that started was when our nonprofit started back in 2021. You don't really have the funds unless you have a donor come in and say, "Hey, here's what you got to go, what you're going to do. Here's the funds you have to do it with." But I had the ability to have 5 kids that, despite any kind of funding, wanted to do some things. So we were fortunate to get some grant funding right out the gate to support some of the initiatives and the coalition work that we were trying to do. So we took those 5 kids to a leadership conference in Mecklenburg County, and they got exposed to the youth-led and adult-guided model. And they were around peers that were leading the charge in their community. And on the van ride back, those kids were like, "This has got to happen in Wilkes. We're going to make this happen one way or another." And they did. They meet every week. They've been meeting almost every Thursday for the past 2.5 years, and they are doing some phenomenal things.
Does that give you confidence for the future?
Oh, absolutely. Every day, I'm so excited to go to the office to see what we're having to do behind the scenes to let them do the work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've got the best job in the world. I'm super stoked to be working with kids. I think a lot of times people talk about kids are so isolated and they're focused on their technology and they don't want to do anything, and kids get a bad rap. But I think if you give kids the opportunity to do things, like, they're going to do it. And that truly builds my confidence in the next generation.
Nice. That was a great soundbite. I like that a lot. However, let's talk about that. So you brought up a good point that people will often say, it's technology, kids can't focus, all this. So tell the other part of that story.
Yeah.
Advocate, if you will, for young people. I
mean, kids they're social in their own ways. If you look at kids that are in like video games and they want to be in their room playing video games, well, 9 out of 10 times they're in their own internet world where they're working with their peers to do something, or they're socializing, or they are socializing. They're not just in their room twiddling their thumbs, not doing anything. I mean, they're exposed to a world that some people don't even know about. So that's really cool. I think that's something people don't realize sometimes. And then,
but is that part of the problem in people not understanding what that world might be?
Yeah.
Because there are talks, of bad things can happen when you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But that's not predominantly, though, is it?
No. I would agree. I think the understanding and the misunderstanding, and then the ability to let kids be their own leaders. I think a lot of times people they think they need to hold kids' hands and make them get from point A to point B, when if you empower them and trust them to get from point A to point B, they're usually gonna they might get to C, but they're gonna get to B eventually. They have their own path and they're gonna figure it out, but it's gonna be a learning opportunity. And if you don't give kids a learning opportunity to make choices and to deal with the consequences that they could potentially face, like, you're not really helping them become the best versions of themselves.
So they're not having the opportunity to exercise their muscles, their mental muscles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So in a sense, in moving forward, you're moving back to a time period. If we go back in time a couple hundred years ago, and you look at, civilization was quite functional, right? It was just different than it is now. But kids were involved with activities at a very early age, in a different type of a way, but they were out enjoying nature. They were playing in the mud. They were doing things that we now it's called earthing. Now it's something. So now older people have to do. We're learning that, we need to put our feet on the ground. We need to do these type of things. And all we're doing is going back to the behavior of someone would have been as a child, but maybe not today. Literally back in time.
Yeah. And there's an ecosystem too that kids are exposed to. That whether it's bullies at school, or you have your jocks, or you have your preppy kids, or you have your kids that are your nerds, quote unquote. Like, you have all these different players in an ecosystem that are developing you and developing these kids into who they are. And I think that's also something I think people don't really realize sometimes, is it takes all those people to be working together to develop one another in some way, shape, or form.
So even the bully has his purpose?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, you got to tell us about that. Bullies unite.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm a believer in, you're going to learn something from everybody, whether it's maybe not how to treat somebody, or treat somebody a better way or a different way. Even if somebody has a negative behavior, somebody's going to learn something positive from that. There's always a positive spin on everything that happens.
All right. If nothing else, you learn what not to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
For sure.
Now we're on the same. Now we're on the same board. Okay. Life in general is complicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we go back and look at in our history books, which I think is a really cool thing to do because we learn things there. While technology distractions have certainly evolved, but the idea that older people always thinking they know more than young people, and young people always rebel. Once again, this is back to the beginning of time, right? So these are not uncommon things. But if I understand correctly, what your organization is doing is giving younger people an opportunity to exercise.
Yes, absolutely.
Their cognitive abilities at a very young age, and learn how to work together and be the best they can be for the community.
For sure. And there's different perspectives. I mean, when you have a young person and an older person, or their parent or grandparent talking, like, everybody has different perspectives. And to be able to take a young person's perspective and hear it is one thing, but to take their perspective and then hear it and then act on it is another thing. That's
example, please.
So, me and my staff talk a lot of times about different outreach programs we can do, whether it could be giving information out at an event, Peach Festival, or a Halloween event or something, and we think it could be, beneficial, and we tell our kids, hey, this is what we think is going to work. What do you think? And kids have no problem telling you it's a terrible idea or it's a great idea. And a lot of times, some of the things that we think is really cool, our kids say is not a good idea, and we should revisit that idea. So we're hearing what they've got to say. But if we don't act on what they say, and we still go forward with our idea and still try to give that information out, like we don't have the buy-in from our kids anymore. Like, you're asking for my opinion, but you're not really doing anything with it. So if our kid says, hey, yes, I hear what you're trying to do, but that information or activity isn't going to meet or appeal to our peers, you should do this instead. All right, we hear what you're saying, and we're going to act on it, and we're going to switch and shift to be beneficial for the population we're trying to serve.
So what's usually the outcome?
It's usually a lot more successful.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anything we do, any kind of program or outreach activity or initiative we try to do, like, we always run it through our kids. We want to serve you and your peers is what we're thinking going to work. And if it needs to be shifted, needs to be edited, like, we're going to do that because we value what they say and we want them to be bought into what we're trying to do.
But the kids that you're asking these questions from, they're kids who are involved in your organization, right?
Yeah,
they're in your leadership
sometimes,
group.
I mean, a week or so ago, we did some focus groups in the community, and we just blasted that on social media, and we had kids show up that were involved and kids that showed up that weren't involved. And we just wanted to hear what was going on in their lives, what was important, and what kind of support, could we offer them.
Were they similar, the ones that were involved and not involved? Were you hearing commonalities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, kids that are involved with us know that as an adult, we're going to value them and respect them and take their ideas and run with them. But kids that weren't involved with us, I mean, they were telling us, hey, I just want to be taken serious sometime. I want to have a voice and I want it to be heard. And that's a great opportunity for us to say, hey, well, you can come get involved with some things we have going on, and you can have that.
So are you seeing the power of that involvement helping enrich your participants' lives?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Expose them to different things. So every year we have numerous conferences that we go to. We always go to D.C. in end of January, 1st of February, and those kids have an opportunity to go and talk to members of Congress or members of our House or the Senate, and to watch them talk to these elected officials with confidence and to know what they're talking about is really cool. The kids that we work with are really excited about meeting what I say are the big wigs of our community. It could be, simple to like my board of directors, or it could be our county government, our local government, to introduce them that they're all about it. And they see the respect that they know the respect that person should have, and so it's yes, ma'am, yes, sir, shaking hands, how are you? That's really cool.
Okay, so you just described patterns of behavior that let us know that the kids that are involved with your program, they're proactive in their thought processes.
Absolutely.
Right? So that helps frame our thoughts or at least my thoughts as it relates to what these kids, their ideas are.
Yeah.
Because if they're concerned with these things, it almost sounds like it's some of those same principles that a Boy Scout would have.
Yeah.
Or, the oratory contest that the American Legion does. You've got these kids that are their opinion matters because they know how to think and they know how to do things.
Absolutely. And they're proactive instead of being reactive to different issues.
Okay, so that's a big part of what you do. What do you do to help kids that aren't quite there yet? What about those kids?
Yeah, so that's kind of a unique perspective where, in the beginning, we as adults tried to support those kids and how can we nurture and how can we help. But really, it doesn't matter what we as adults do. It's our kids, the kids that we have involved, being the ones that are reaching a hand out, picking kids up and taking them under their wing to, like a peer-to-peer mentoring.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's effective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kids want the support and the buy-in from adults, but they also want that from their older peers. So if you've got a freshman in high school that's trying to figure out what's going on, you may have a senior or a junior, they, in some way, shape, or form, they want to be validated. For the most part, they want they want to have a positive relationship. So that's easy to do when you have some solid kids that can offer that service.
Not long ago, the new president of the Wilkes Community College set where you're sitting now, and we talked about critical thinking and how important that is in workforce development.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like that you're helping do a bit of that training now with your program, because thinking about how to interact with people, thinking about how community works, learning those things, that would affect the way you would think, right?
Yeah, and I think with WYLD, we kind of have 3 areas of focus. We have like substance use prevention, we have mental health advocacy, and then we're working to get towards the workforce development side of things. So a cool example of that is about a month ago in one of our weekly meetings, we posed our kids with 2 issues. I think one of the issues was homelessness, and one of the issues was food insecurity. And we said, hey, if resources were endless, but you have to be realistic, what would you do to solve those problems? And they got together as a group and talked about different things that they wanted to do. And some of them had some really far-fetched ideas, and some of them had some really realistic ideas that are applicable. And it kind of validated some of our future plans that we were thinking about doing. So we definitely have some plans, hopefully to launch this fall, maybe early spring of 25, to really start dabbling in that workforce development side of things.
Great. Let's talk about so work site development, workforce development, that educational program opportunities that are in Wilkes are quite prolific, I think, because you've got the high school, college programs that are working really nicely together now. So do your kids, are any of them participating in that yet, or is that talked about?
Yes, it's talked about now. So we have a group of kids that are going in their senior year next year. So they're really starting to think about their next steps in life and what they're going to do. So we've been trying to plug them in and get them connected with those different resources so they can start planning. They're already planning, but to help better their plans for what they want to do after school.
Great. Well, let's talk about mental health. That was number 2, right?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, huge.
That's let's talk about that. What are you doing in that area to make a difference?
Yes, there's a few things we're doing. I think everything relates back to our Teen Action Council, so giving them those opportunities. But we're also working on a couple of programs. We've been partnering with Wilkes County Schools to do some pilot programs for a teen mental health first aid. And that's a program that adults come in and talk to teenagers about what's going on in their lives and how they can get support and how they can talk through things and how they can get connected with a healthy, safe adult to, maybe take the next step. So that's something that we're really hoping to go county-wide with maybe next school year, from like a programmatical standpoint.
Right.
But a lot of things that we do is kind of I don't know how I guess you kind of describe it as not your normal. It's not like we're coming in and saying, hey, this is your program from A to Z. This is how you're going to get there. It's really kind of exposing kids to like pro-social activities or positive environments where you're getting your point across and your kids not that they don't really realize what's happening, but you're having a direct, indirect impact in what you're doing.
Like what?
So we do this is maybe more prevention focused, but we do after prom parties after every single high school's prom. So we partner with the block in downtown North Wilkesboro, and we have our WYLD AF parties, and that's our alcohol-free parties.
Right.
So kids come to that, and they hang out with their peers. They have a good time. They're still having that party aspect of after prom, but it's a substance-free event, and it's a pro-social activity, and it's a safe event, and they're getting to do all the fun things in a safe environment. So you give kids opportunities, either a positive opportunity or an opportunity to maybe go to a cornfield and sit in the back of somebody's truck and hang out. Hopefully I think most kids are going to take the positive opportunity versus, doing something they can get in trouble with.
Right. Are you getting positive feedback from those activities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we've had those for 2 years in a row, and both years, we've had right around 600 or so kids come out to those events.
So good size numbers then.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's a very practical thing to do.
Yeah.
That's is the idea that by providing that safe environment to have that great experience, that this is something that the absence of the negative impact,
Yes.
that makes moving through life an easier process.
Yeah, I think so.
And we don't have that when things are tough or, celebratory, we've got to do something that might not be safe.
Right.
Fun for a second, but it could be bad.
Yeah. And like we try to keep our kids, I think kids in general, like they're so busy, but you got to keep them busy, keep them focused. That way they're not bored or they're thinking or tempted or doing anything like that. So like the kids that we have involved, there's something going on all the time.
So is that your idea or is that the committee's idea?
I'd say a little bit of both.
Both?
A little
Okay.
bit of both. Yeah.
So everybody concurs on that notion.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Sometimes it would be nice to take a break and catch my breath, but it's
good to
they
stay
like
busy.
staying busy. We've had 4 conferences over the summer and numerous different outreach events, and it's just going to get busier as the year winds down.
Right. So before your program was launched, was there another program, or is there something else similar going on now, or did you truly fill a gap that, wait a minute, this is a need that's there, and so let's do it because nobody else is doing it?
I think when you look at Wilkes as a whole, I think we met that need. Like there wasn't really a youth-led model or opportunities for youth. There were some organizations doing some youth initiatives, but I think to truly give youth the reins and let them run with their ideas, I don't think that there was anything in Wilkes like that happening.
Right. Did people ever look at you over their glasses when
Yeah.
when you're pitching this idea and trying to get contributions and more people involved? Is there that moment of?
I think so, for sure. I think people are, when you talk about we're going to serve youth, but we're going to let them serve themselves and we're going to support them, they have a lot of questions like, what is that going to look like? How are you going to do that? But when we can show them the success that we've had as a new organization, we're just now going into our 4th fiscal year, and the success that we've had in that short amount of time, people are like, all right, obviously something's working, and I might not understand every aspect of what you're doing, but you can prove to me by this data point and that data point that you're moving the needle. Like, all right, I don't have to understand everything you're doing to want to support what you're doing.
Right. Well, we may be in that same boat of not completely understanding, but it sounds like a great program, and enough to where we should visit again. So I think this was a great introduction. So from an introductory standpoint, is there anything else that we really need to know to fully understand what you do?
I just think when it comes to youth development in any way, shape, or form, like there's an opportunity with some of our programming and some of the initiatives we have going on where we can serve all different populations. And, that's another thing that we really pride ourselves in is you have certain funding that could be coming down from the state or from the federal government. You got to work with kids that, could be justice involved. You got to work with kids that could be at risk of homelessness or the at-risk population of kids. All kids are at risk in some way, shape, or form. So we don't really try to conform to those kind of restrictions. We want to serve youth in all ways, shape, or form. It doesn't matter what your background is or what you've maybe never experienced. Like there's a place for you at the table, and we're really proud of that.
Luke, before we part ways for this visit, you just said something that I can't help but to imagine could be incredibly meaningful to certain people. That if you've got a young person and you have this organization that's open and you're saying, we value you, we want you to be, we want to hear what you have to say. If that person doesn't have that experience or has never had that experience, you could be sharing an opportunity that they've never had in their entire life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Families of there are families that, generationally, that's not something that kids get.
Right.
So have you seen the power of your program have an impact on that person?
Oh, absolutely. And I think some easy success stories of that are being able to take kids on different trips, like to DC. We've got kids that have never left the county of Wilkes, and we've been able to get in a bus or get in a van and drive up there and take them, outside of something they've never been outside of before, and like to give kids those opportunities is really cool. It's been really fun for me.
Yeah, that's great. You just want to go have fun.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to stay young?
Yeah.
We'll build an organization.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Your family, are they proud of you?
Yeah, they are all the time.
Yeah.
All the time, getting pats on the backs, and we're proud of you, and it's been really cool.
That's a good thing. Luke Jarvis, it's great talking to you. How do people find out more about your organization?
Yeah, so we're on all the social medias. You can look up Wilkes Youth Life Development. We're on everything. We have a website, or you can just reach out to me on Facebook or whatever, and I would love to talk with anybody and answer any questions I could.
Right. There you go. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thanks, Carl.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.